Trees are everywhere on Earth, and there are over 3 trillion of them around the globe. They're super important for our planet. They make oxygen, give homes to animals, and give us wood. But besides being peaceful and beautiful, trees have hidden some really unexpected and sometimes spooky stories over time. Today, we'll share 20 of these stories with you. If you're new here, subscribe to Blind Truth and click the notification bell. Also, give this video a like before we dive in. Number 20. In the Basque region of Europe, people carve messages or drawings on tree bark. Shepherds and travelers usually do this to record their experiences or thoughts. These carvings give us a peek into Basque culture, language, and history. They're on different trees like beech, oak, chestnut, and pine. They show text, symbols, and pictures. The messages cover lots of topics. Some show countryside scenes or religious symbols, while others talk about personal things or comment on society and politics. These carvings also tell us about local traditions and stories. Sometimes they're a way for shepherds to show they've been there or to claim parts of the land. Number 19. A super cool discovery gave scientists a peek into a really important time on Earth about 42,000 years ago. They found out from an old tree in New Zealand that lived when the Earth's magnetic field went all wonky. This tree, called a Kori tree, can keep a record of its own life, and researchers got a really well-preserved log from a swamp. They checked the tree rings to figure out it was around 42,000 years old, right when the Earth's magnetic field got really weak and almost flipped. The rings in the tree show what the weather was like when it was growing. By using fancy tests, scientists matched up the patterns in the rings with changes in the magnetic field. Number 18. In a charming town called Alton in England, there's a really old tree called the chained oak. People there tell different stories about why it's chained up. Some think it's to stop its branches from falling, but others believe something darker. Long ago, there was a ghostly tale about this tree. They say it goes like this. The tree got chained up because of a curse from a guy named the Earl of Shrewsbury. The story goes that on a stormy night, this Earl turned away a beggar, and in anger, the beggar cursed the Earl and the land. He said that when the last branch of the oak fell, the Earl would meet his end. Scared of this curse, the Earl ordered the tree to be chained up, hoping it would save his life. The heavy iron chains were put around its branches to hold them up. Now, this tree is a famous spot for tourists. People come to see its spooky history. Whether you believe in the curse or not, it's hard to deny that this tree makes you think about supernatural stuff. Number 17. One time, an old police dog named Kyle helped Officer John Smith find something strange near a tree. Kyle kept barking, catching their attention. They thought Kyle, being a former police dog, might have found something illegal, maybe drugs in the tree. This got Officer Smith curious, so he carefully looked under the tree's loose bark. To their surprise, they found what seemed like a human skeleton. They called the authorities, who came and cut the tree down. But after a close look, they realized the skeleton was fake. It turned out to be a prank or a Halloween joke that someone had put in the tree and forgotten about. Sometimes people hide fake skeletons or other things in trees for fun or other reasons. Number 16. Maori sculptures, called wakio, are really important in the culture of New Zealand's Maori people. They're detailed wooden carvings that mean a lot. They show old family members, made-up creatures, or big events in Maori history. These sculptures are usually made from special wood and are carefully crafted using old tools and ways. You can find them in lots of places, and they're strong symbols of Maori beliefs. Each sculpture has its own story that's really special spiritually. They connect today's Maori to their ancestors and nature. These sculptures aren't just nice to look at. They're seen as valuable treasures. Number 15. About 2,200 years ago, during the Iron Age, a group of Celts put a woman to rest in a tree trunk in what's now Zurich, Switzerland. The Celts were an old European group with their own beliefs and customs. They had special ways of honoring the dead, like careful burial rituals and leaving offerings with the body. Finding the woman in the hollowed-out tree shows how the Celts did things differently when burying people back then. Choosing a tree trunk as a burial spot might have had a deep meaning for them. Trees were really important and sacred to the Celts, symbolizing ideas about life, death, and nature's cycle. They believed that placing someone in a hollowed-out tree helped them move on to the afterlife or connect with the spiritual world. Number 14. People all over the world love the idea of turning hollow trees into amazing libraries. These special libraries show how nature and books can come together in a really cool way. Let me tell you about some awesome examples. Cher Armitage Howard, a librarian in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, brought a 100-year-old tree in her yard back to life. She turned it into a fantastic little free library. People in her community could swap books there and feel connected through stories. Then there's Sarah Sanders in Everett, Washington. She decided to make a library in a huge 118-foot cedar tree in her yard. It turned out to be a beautiful library that everyone in the neighborhood loved. There are loads of these tree libraries all over the world. People can step inside these hollow trees and discover a whole world of books. Cool, right? Number 13. In 2019, something really cool happened at the old Overfelt Johnston House in Independence, Missouri. They found a cannonball from the Civil War stuck in a walnut tree on the property. The tree was huge but sick, so they were cutting it down. When they were splitting the logs, Jeff from Jeff's Tree Service saw the cannonball fall out. It was a big relief for him. Finding the cannonball in the tree makes people think it might have a cool link to the time of the Civil War. Independence was a big deal during that war, with lots of fights between the Union and Confederate armies happening around there. The cannonball in the walnut tree could be from one of those fights. It's kind of like when they found a cannonball in an American elm tree in Quebec City. The military gets called a lot to remove old cannonballs. They say they get about 60 to 70 calls every year for that. Number 12. Ancient Aboriginal scar trees are really old trees that have special marks on their trunks. Indigenous Australians made these marks a long time ago for different reasons. They used tools like stone axes to carefully take off bits of bark or wood from the tree. The Aboriginal communities used these trees for lots of things. They marked special places for ceremonies or places that were important and sacred. They also used these marked trees to find water or to help with directions. The marks on the trees were very important to them because they held stories that were spiritual or talked about important events in their culture. These kinds of trees are mostly in southeastern Australia, where this practice was most common. They show how strong the connection was between the Aboriginal people and the land. These trees are like a real link to their culture and the things they did in the past. Today, these trees are really important because they're seen as special landmarks and are protected to keep Australia's cultural history safe. Number 11. Back in 2014, a group of loggers in Lumbee, British Columbia, found something really surprising. It was a leftover from World War II, a Japanese balloon bomb. See, during the war, Japan had this plan to attack the United States by sending big balloons filled with hydrogen over the Pacific Ocean. These balloons were carrying bombs meant to start fires in forests and scare people. The loggers found one of these balloons high up in the trees. It had traveled thousands of kilometers and stayed hidden for a long time. At first, they thought it was just some weather balloon or debris from a storm. But when they looked closer, they realized it was actually a Japanese bomb. They let the authorities know, and later on, experts confirmed that it was indeed a weapon from World War II. It's a piece of history that was found unexpectedly after all those years. Number 10. There's a famous story about a tree on Vashon Island in Washington. People have been fascinated by it for years. The story goes that there's a bike stuck inside the tree, and pictures of it often come with the tale. Legend has it that a boy left his bike chained to the tree when he went off to war in 1914. Years later, a man named Don Pooh said that the bike in the picture was his. He admitted leaving it in the area shown, but didn't mention chaining it to the tree. This strange thing where objects like bikes get swallowed by trees is called tree swallowing or tree encasement. It happens when a tree grows around something and absorbs it into its trunk. Depending on how fast the tree grows and the size of the object, this process can take a few years. Number 9. In 2015, something really cool happened in a neighborhood in Orlando. People who lived there and folks who love bees got interested. They found a beehive with more than 50,000 honeybees. Everyone in the community was talking about it. This hive was huge, weighing about 99 pounds or 45 kilograms, hanging from a tree branch between 2 yards. When they found it, a beekeeper named Jason from Xeris came to help. He took out the honeycombs and moved the bees to a special box made for them. These bees were wild, so Jason had to be extra careful in handling them. He took out the queen bee and put in a new one to take care of the colony better, their new home. Even though the honey from the hive couldn't be eaten because it might not have been safe, Jason found that the beeswax was valuable. He could melt it down and use it again. Surprisingly, even though there were so many bees in that hive, they weren't mean or attacking anyone. They stayed calm and peaceful. Number 8. In France, there's a really special oak tree called the chapel oak in Normandy. What's amazing about it is that there's a chapel built inside its trunk. This mix of nature and architecture makes it a really important and holy place for people who come from all over the world. It all started back in the 11th century when a lightning bolt made a hollow space in the tree. The locals thought it was meaningful and turned it into a prayer spot. Since then, it's been a place where folks find peace and spiritual comfort, especially during tough times like wars. The inside of the tree is well taken care of and has religious stuff and pretty wooden benches. This chapel oak has stood strong through history, becoming a symbol of strength and lasting through a lot of changes over the years. Number 7. Stucky was a hunting dog in Georgia, USA. He got stuck inside a tree while chasing a raccoon and couldn't get out. He stayed stuck there for about 20 years until loggers found him in 1980. Stucky probably went into the tree in the 1960s while chasing the raccoon. As he climbed up, the hole he went in through got smaller, trapping him inside the tree. The tree preserved his body like a mummy instead of letting it rot away. The loggers found Stucky when they were going to cut the tree. Instead of cutting it, they gave it to a museum called Forest World. The people at the museum named the mummified dog Stucky, and lots of people came from all over the world to see him. They didn't know exactly how Stucky became a mummy until later. They think that the air flowing up through the hollow trees stopped bugs and things from getting to Stucky's body. The dry conditions and natural things inside the tree made his skin hard and kept him preserved. Number 6. The Sunland Big Bab is a super famous tree in South Africa. It's special because it's really, really big and has some cool things about it. People all over the world know about it because it's so unique. This tree is about 6,000 years old, which makes it one of the oldest and biggest baobab trees in Africa. Baobab trees look different with their thick trunks and not many branches. They're important in this area for a long time because of their history and how they help nature. But what's amazing about the Sunland Big Bab is how huge it is and that it's hollow inside. The tree is about 154 feet around, and inside there are rooms that can fit up to 60 people. Somebody had a clever idea and turned this hollow part into a bar. People come from everywhere to visit this bar called the Big Bab Pub. It's pretty cool inside with decorations and stuff left by other people who've been there. There's even a cozy fireplace. Would you want to go there for a drink or a meal? Let me know in the comments. Number 5. Trail trees, also called marker trees, are special trees that tell stories about Native American tribes in North America. People intentionally shaped these trees a long time ago to help with directions and mark important places. They did this by carefully bending young trees and tying them so they'd grow in a special way. These trees often bend at a 90-degree angle or make distinct shapes like arches or pointers. They became like permanent signs in the land, helping travelers and tribes find their way in places they didn't know. These trees are really important because they were like a language and a map for tribes. They helped tribes find things they needed and create paths for trading. Also, they were meaningful for spiritual ceremonies, showing a connection between nature and the tribes who shaped them. Each tree has its own story and might mean different things, but they all show how smart and creative Native American cultures were. These trees are like living history books, holding the wisdom and stories of many generations from the past. Number 4. How far do smugglers go to sneak things? You might have heard of hiding stuff in pillowcases or hollowing out suitcases, but have you heard about hiding things in trees? A bunch of Russian smugglers got caught trying to sneak cigarettes by putting them in hollowed-out tree trunks. This shows how sneaky criminals can be when moving illegal stuff around. Ukrainian customs officers found these trees by chance at the Polish border. When they checked closer, they saw the trunks were hollowed out and stuffed with cigarettes. The sneaky part. The smugglers cleverly sealed the ends to hide their crime. Officers noticed some trunks were oddly light, which led to the discovery. These smugglers picked tree trunks because they look natural, making it hard to guess they were up to something shady. Number 3. Witch marks, also called apotropaic marks, are symbols or patterns carved into trees. People thought these markings could keep away bad spirits, witches, and other spooky creatures. People started doing this during the Middle Ages, and it was really common in Europe, especially in England. They made these marks to protect themselves, their animals, and their stuff from bad forces. The carvings usually had lines crossing each other, circles, letters, or other symbols. They were often carved into trees like oak, ash, or hawthorn, which were seen as special or believed to have protective powers. But these marks weren't only on trees. They could also be found on buildings, doorways, and other things. Some marks might have been made to trap or confuse evil spirits. Others were a signal to watch out for witches. These symbols were sometimes linked with the Christian religion too, like having crosses or pentagrams. Number 2. Tara tree graves, also known as hanging graves, are a special way that a group of people called the Tarara in South Sulawesi, Indonesia, bury their loved ones. These graves are really important to the Tarara because they show their beliefs and customs about death and what happens after we die. What they do is put the person who passed away inside a special box called a coffin. Then, they place this coffin either inside a big hollow part of a tree or up high on a strong branch. They make sure the coffin is safe by using ropes, wooden platforms, or other natural things. The reason they do this is to help the person who died get closer to heaven and make their journey to the afterlife easier. These tree graves are like a connection between our world and the spirit world. They're like a meeting spot for the person who passed away and their ancestors. The Tarara people have really involved and long funerals that can last for many days or even weeks. During these funerals, they do lots of special ceremonies and traditions like eating together, dancing, sacrificing animals, and giving gifts. Each family usually has their own tree graves, and they keep passing them on to their children and grandchildren. They believe that the spirits of their ancestors keep looking after their family and protecting them from these tree graves. Number 1. Ever heard of wishing wells? Well, there are also wishing trees, and this goes way back to the 1700s. People believe these trees have something magical or spiritual about them. They visit these trees to make wishes or ask for blessings. They tie ribbons, cloth, or things onto the branches as a way of showing their wish or prayer. Wishing trees are in lots of different cultures, like the Celts, Norse, and in Japan. In Japan, during a festival called Tanabata, or the Star Festival, they tie wishes to bamboo trees. You'll usually find these wishing trees in places like forests or near water. Being close to nature makes people think the tree connects our world to something more divine or spiritual. Making a wish or saying a prayer at a wishing tree often comes with special rituals. People might walk around the tree, say special words, or leave things like coins, flowers, or notes. Ever found something cool around a tree? Tell us in the comments below. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you want more videos like this, check out our channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.